Hi everybody. We've had some pretty productive face-to-face optional sessions this semester, and I was thinking about it after last night's class, and there's a lot of things that I wish I could communicate to you in person, but we don't have that kind of format obviously, so I thought I'd take a few minutes, make a quick video, share some thoughts and discussions that come up during the face-to-face that I thought would help understand the whole lesson process that I'm trying to communicate. The first thing that I want to make clear is when we think about instructional design, we have to do it in order, okay? And so typically, we don't in the profession do it this way, but this is the way it should be done. The first thing we decide is what we want to teach, right? So standards, objectives, okay, what we want to teach. That doesn't work too well. Let me try green. Next thing we determine is in order. After we determine what we want to teach, how are we going to determine if they learned it, right? Assessment. So first we decide what we want to teach. Second, we decide how am I going to measure that they're learning that. And then the third thing after the assessment is how are we going to teach mastery on this? How are we going to create success here? So instruction, right? Now, I consider this input. And when we talk about input on the lesson plan, I consider all of the lesson components related to instruction to go under input essentially, right? Check for understanding, modeling, guided practice, independent practice, closure, all that stuff. Because when Madeline Hunter developed this whole EEI lesson plan idea, she broke down these components separately because she wanted you to think about and process, okay, I need to have check for understanding in my lesson. I need to have an opportunity for modeling. I need to have all these components, okay? But they're all interrelated and there's overlap and that kind of stuff happens. But on your lesson plan, you try to separate it out as best you can, okay? So this is the instructional design process. What are you going to teach? How are you going to assess it? How are you going to teach mastery for success on here, right? Too many times we do it out of order. We decide what we're going to teach, we design instruction, and then sometime later we develop an assessment after the fact, and that screws with alignment. So I want to talk about alignment and what I mean by alignment and why it's really important. Okay, so you've got your objective that includes behaviors that you want to see, right? Then you've got your assessment. It's got to be alignment here. What that means is when you look at all the behaviors in your objective that you want students to demonstrate, is your assessment assessing those specific behaviors, no more, no less? That's alignment. When you look at your assessment, is it assessing these behaviors? Or is it assessing these behaviors plus some? That's not alignment. So look at put them side by side, look at your objective, and look at the behaviors that you want to see, and look at your assessment, and see if there's any behaviors here that aren't here, or vice versa. That's alignment. That's really important. You also have alignment with your instruction. Again, all those components I mentioned. Okay? Now, I'm going to talk about detail in here and why it's important. Okay? So, when we're designing the lesson plan, when I say detail in all your instructional components, again, input, modeling, check for understanding, guided practice, independent, all that kind of stuff, you want somebody qualified to be able to pick up your lesson and be able to implement it, okay? And so you want it in a format also that's going to be conducive and helpful and useful to you, like especially in the secondary level. We're talking about middle school and middle school and high school. So, you know, you're probably going to be implementing this lesson 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day. So you want to consistently implement it. And doing it, if we use like a paragraph format here, the teacher will, I will, blah, 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 it's just not a useful tool for you to refer to in the heat of the moment, because we don't need the teacher will and the student will, or the teacher will or I will, because we know that. You wrote it, it's your lesson plan, you're the only one looking at it. We probably want to use bullets. Doesn't have to be bullets, but I would suggest some kind of bullet format so that you can refer to it as a reference. That it's a guide, right? So you know, what are some important things when you were sitting down thinking about this lesson? How did you visualize it going down and happening? What are the key questions that you want to consistently ask to promote higher level thinking, or to promote the discussion, or promote the ideas and the thought processes that you thought about as you're designing this lesson? Write those questions down so that you can consistently ask them. If you say things in here like they're going to be in the groups, what's the grouping strategy? How are you getting them in groups? If you mention resources, where are those resources? You know, if you say you're going to give them this sheet, or you're going to show them this presentation, or you're going to show them this video clip, or you're going to do all these kinds of things. What's it called? Where's it at? Detail, detail, detail. So, when you look at your assessment, okay, you've got your assessment right here. Look at your instruction and ask yourself, is there enough there to create success on this? So if I just give them this, whatever's there, will they have enough information to be successful on the assessment? That's detail. See, what happens too much is, you know what's going on in your lesson, and you've got it all in your head, and you created it. So we tend to leave out, 80% of it. I don't want to leave it out. Now, I'm also going to say that I understand in the field, in the practical sense, you're not going to be creating a lesson plan with this amount of detail on a daily basis. I totally get that. Okay, and I'm not trying to imply that you will. What I'm trying to imply is that as a teacher, you have to understand the instructional design process and the order, and how to align lessons, and how to, address all the components to make sure that we're creating coherent, aligned lessons. And you need to prove to me that you can do that. So that's the whole piece here. Now, the way I kind of view a lesson plan really is 4 components. Your objective, your assessment, your instruction. Again, instruction includes input, modeling, guided practice, independent practice, check for understanding, all that stuff. I included here in this order. And then over here, you got the anticipatory set. Okay? Let's talk about anticipatory set. These are the 4 basic components, I think, of the lesson plan that are, okay, so you've got alignment here. You do this in order. And then you've got anticipatory set, which in my view, not necessarily aligned, and it can go anywhere. You could do it first, you could do it in between, you could do it at the end. You do it when a great idea comes to you. The way I view the anticipatory set is, does it have to be related to your lesson? Yeah, it's got to be connected in some sense, certainly. So does it have to be perfectly aligned? No, I don't think so. The anticipatory set is a tool just to get their attention. It's a brief tool generally. It's something just to get their attention. It's for the kid in the back of the room who doesn't really care about your class to kind of perk up and be like, what? What's going on? That's an anticipatory set. Maintaining their attention is going to be this piece, okay? Engaging instruction, effective instruction, okay? So the anticipatory set is not a bell ringer or those kinds of things. The bell ringer is essentially useful busy work, right? Students have something when they come in, some kind of routine, they're engaged, they have an accountability, a responsibility to do something while the teacher's, doing housekeeping and attendance or whatever. That's not an anticipatory set. Distinctly different. So you could have a bell ringer. Okay, that happens every day. That's great. And then all that stuff is done. Then you kick into your lesson, and you have an anticipatory set. Now, the reason why I say that it can go anywhere is because this is probably an effective anticipatory set, in my view, is one of the most difficult pieces of the whole lesson plan to create an effective one. Sometimes a lesson can stem from a great anticipatory set idea. Sometimes it can come to you in the middle of designing a lesson. Sometimes you can't think of one until the end. So really it fits where it fits in terms of the design process. Something engaging, something unique, something different, something that's related to the instruction, but not necessarily it has to be perfectly connected. I think that generally covers it. Well, let me mention a little piece about modeling, check for understanding, and those pieces. So modeling, what are we showing them that is the finished product or what we're looking for from our behaviors that we want to see in the objective, okay? What are those behaviors and how are we showing them? So is it an example? Are we walking them through a process? Are we modeling a line of thinking? Are we showing them a finished piece? Are we showing them a video clip of what we're looking for? Depends what you're doing, right? So I've seen some examples of modeling that are good, but they only include a portion of the behaviors you're looking for, right? So maybe we've got an essay that's our behavior that we're looking for, and part of the essay involves using proper citations, maybe. And so the modeling piece includes, well, walking them through and showing them how to do a proper citation and all that kind of stuff. And that's good, that is a piece of modeling, but it's only a small portion of the behavior you're looking for. So there's more to the modeling. Check for understanding. Right, what are we doing to see if to get some feedback for us to see if they're getting the instruction? Right? It could be lots of checks, right, as we piece through the lesson. Right, so what are the behaviors we're looking for? Right? And as we go through our instruction, at what points do we need to check? Now you see what I'm saying about overlap and all these kinds of things? It's not, in practical sense, things aren't really clearly delineated. Okay, check for understanding. Guided practice, independent practice, right? There's merging in between, right? We could be going through our input and checking for understanding at the same time. But in our lesson plan, we break it down because, again, Madeline Hunter wants us to make sure that we think about these components and include them in our lesson. And by identifying them individually, it ensures that we're processing it, we're putting a consideration for it in there. Okay, but it all melts together. There's overlap, I get that. Well, that's about it. I hope it's helpful, and if you got any questions, as always, email me, text me, call me, do whatever you need. Thanks.